Do not desire a multitude of useless children, nor rejoice in ungodly sons. If they multiply, do not rejoice in them, unless the fear of the Lord is in them. And fear of the Lord, that's kind of what's missing in our society, that fear of the Lord. That's the beginning of wisdom. I mentioned this last week. So it's 82, chapter 16. Having fear of the Lord is good. And we taught, and it said last week, God chastises every son that he loves. We should be afraid to do wrong. And there is this, it's good that you're afraid to do wrong because of the consequences of doing that wrong. There's going to be punishment. So, that's the basis of our legal system and our law, right? If I, just like the guy, if he did wrong, he committed murder, and, he had no fear of the Lord. It's like, because one, there's a heavenly consequence for that. He's going to have to answer to God for that particular thing. But also, even in the law, he may have his, depending on the state, I don't know about Minnesota. I won't go there. He might be left free. No, but it's, there's typically, there could be the death penalty for, murder.
He's dead already.
Right, I know, but there's consequence. So there's a fear of the Lord that we all should have as the basis, and that's the beginning of wisdom, right? That's a good place to start. And so it's pointing out here that do not rejoice in them unless the fear of the Lord is in them. And so we want to show our children that, you shouldn't probably shack up because, God doesn't like that. And there's punishment that's attached to that. And so, I think that's important that, that's fear of the Lord. You're trying to put that in them. Do not trust in their survival, and do not rely on their multitude. For one is better than 1,000, and to die childless is better than to have ungodly children. For through one man of understanding a city will be filled with people, but through a tribe of lawless men it will be made desolate. Many such things my eye has seen, and my ear has heard things more striking than these. And so he's saying, from my own experience, I'm telling you what I know. And a lot of these, these wisdom books, there's the Wisdom of Solomon, a lot of them come down from, and, he prayed for wisdom, right? God said, and he asked for wisdom, and he got it, right? And when you look at the end of his life, it was vanity of vanities. He realized that, he got wisdom by experience too. Because often, when you're a little bit older, you've gone through and you've gotten a few knocks and a few bumps, and you made mistakes, right? And it's good to tell the kids, don't do this because I've done that, and it doesn't do well for you. And that's where there's wisdom, or, you might want to avoid this, or this might, it's guiding them, but it's guiding them based on your life experiences and years of cumulative knowledge, and even things that are a little difficult. You've been through difficult things, and you realize, I thought it would work out this way, but it didn't work out that way. I thought, I had all this plan, and it didn't work according to my plans because I don't have infinite knowledge, and I just missed things, or whatever the case may be. It looked good, but it wasn't really good. In an assembly of sinners, a fire will be kindled. And so, what's that, mob? There's some mob rules, and it's, in a disobedient nation, wrath was kindled. He was not propitiated for the ancient giants who revolted in their might. And I thought that was insane. That's kind of, this is the Nephilim. So this is kind of interesting that a reference to the mighty men or giants whose wickedness unleashed the flood. Have you guys ever...
So there really was them people, those giants?
Well, that's We had a discussion for a whole class on the Nephilim back in Genesis, because there's a whole group that believe that it says the sons of man, so it basically said demons and human women mated, and they created these creatures. Right after that's when God wiped out. So it was a genetic thing that was happening at that point. And we assume that, we assume that, there was only a few people living on the earth when the days of Noah. But if you look at the reproductive capabilities, it could have been as many as 1 billion people on earth at that point. And so, and the wickedness was just continuing on. So, but there's others that say, no, this is people that were faithful to God versus people that were just sinful. And then there's other ones that are saying that people that were under the influence of Satan also had, and they were doing stuff, but it was a genetic. There is a whole group that believes that there was a genetic problem that happened. Think of.
So did the demons, because they were cast to the earth, did they make with human women?
The short answer is I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The short answer is I don't know. I mean,
Stuff and it's like, okay, I don't know.
this is a big. I mean, there's a debate. It's been a debate, and so we don't know. I mean, it's. But God did. That's when He wiped out the whole earth except for 8 people at that point. So if they were giants, they weren't tall enough to withstand a flood. They didn't get on the boat.
No.
So there was only 8 on the boat. So, but that, I just mentioned that because it's kind of a side. But he's making that reference here to Genesis 6. He did not spare the neighbors of Lot, whom he loathed on account of their insolence. So that's all the evil inhabitants of Sodom. And basically it mentions pride and sexual immorality here. We know, they named sodomy after this Sodom, so what was going on there. The whole town was trying to mate with the angels. He showed no pity for a nation devoted to his destruction, for those destroyed in their sins, nor for the 600,000 men on foot who rebelliously assembled in their stubbornness. So this is a generation of Israelites who rebelled against God and Moses in the wilderness, so they all died too. And so we have this notion, and that's why last week when we talked about the narrow gate, we kind of all, again, it's this notion that, everybody's going to be saved, and we're all, he's a good person, and that's sufficient. That's not sufficient. When Jesus says the way is narrow and the number that get there are few, that should kind of put the hairs up on the back of our neck and say, I don't know, I wonder if I'm in that group, Am I on the narrow path? And so again, we go back to the Lord and say, Lord, help me to be on your narrow path. Give me the strength to stay on that narrow path so that I can make it to you. And if I'm not on the narrow path, help me get there, please. And help my family and, intercede, like St. Monica. My kids definitely aren't on the narrow path. I need help. Get them on the narrow path, Lord. And so this is where we can pray, and the prayers of righteous man are powerful before God, it says. And that's why we ask for the intercession of the saints. They're alive, right? Jesus said, you guys know nothing. He told the Pharisees. He said, this is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of the living, not the God of the dead. And so the saints are alive, right? We know they're saints. And so their prayers are powerful before the throne of God. Because it says in...
Our angels as well.
Yeah.
Our guardian angels.
Yep. The powers of a righteous person are powerful before God. And so that's why we ask for St. Monica's intercession. We ask for St. Augustine. We especially ask for Mary and Joseph's intercession, because they're there in the presence of God, and their prayers are powerful. That's what Scripture says, and I trust it. I believe it. That's why, that's why we have the intercessions of the saints. And so I think that's important too, that we don't forget that. There was one other thing I saw here. Oh, that was in the Psalm. It referred to God as Father. And so you see here all the way back in the Psalms, and they have that notion of Father. which is completely separate from Islam. They don't. It's master slave. They completely reject God as Father. And Jesus called him Abba, Father.
I said, well, my dad did. My dad, when I greeted him, I was used to say Abba.
Oh, Abba.
Yeah, Abba.
Yeah, there a lot of the languages. I mean, there's you get it pulled out, or Papa. That's
Yeah.
it's like an endearing term.
It's Italian thing.
Yeah, and I think that's where, again, our culture's so screwed up. Where most, I mean, in Detroit, I know there was statistics before. It was like 70% don't live with their biological father, anymore. I mean, this is like the tragedy of culture. It's happening, and I mean, even President Obama, when he said that's the reason why the black culture is so terrible. I mean, it's just because the fathers aren't men. They're not raising their kids. They're having children and then not raising them and leaving them. And that's the one thing, if you want to know, that's the one social truth that's out there, is that if there's not a father present, then the kids are going to have higher rates of crime, alcoholism, abuse. I mean, it goes all the way down because the mother's with a new guy and he may be abusing the children.
Father don't know if it's his or not. A lot of people in Detroit.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and part of it too is that our culture kind of, I mean, we enacted laws that promote that kind of activity too, because actually the African American culture actually had a stronger, before the civil rights, they actually had a stronger marriages than white people. And people don't realize that, but it was actually at a higher level.
The old people. The older people back then.
Right. Well, I mean, just as the whole generation, but as soon as civil rights came in and these different laws promoted different things, and that was kind of, I mean, you could see a direct correlation. And so, these laws that are enacted do have consequences. So we want to have people that actually have some of the wisdom of God so that we can have some good laws that help people, not hurt them, and don't promote no kids, like abortion. Don't promote no marriage. I mean, we have the whole, or don't promote, marriage between a man and a woman, and like having various genders and all this other stuff that's going on. It's not of God's word. And so we have to pray that and we are responsible for who we vote for too. We want to vote for people that are going to uphold God's law in our society. And the more that happens, the better off we'll be, because when our nation's laws match God's laws, we'll do well. Typically what happens when a nation's, becomes full of heathens, basically they just get wiped away. And actually for republics, it's usually 250 years. If you look at all the republics in the past, they've lasted about 250 years. So next year's what?
Is it too
Yeah, our 250th anniversary as a country. And actually somebody early on said, as soon as they figured out they could print money, that was the end of them. There was another, and I thought, wow, that's what we're doing now. But I think we'll end with that, since